13% is to access or create bank accounts. Once they open up the bank account, they get counterfeit payroll, personal checks. They can even strip the home equity out of your own home. Now, once they open up these bank accounts under your name, they just get the bank checks. They take those checks. They write checks all over town, bouncing those checks, of course, further soiling your good name. And then as far as stripping the home equity out of your home, unfortunately, that's very easy to do. Mortgage fraud is a major, major problem that's getting much bigger. And that means that they can actually take the deed to your home, and they can actually sell that home to themselves in so many different ways. They know how to manipulate all the different paperwork, and they can then go apply to a bank, and they can actually refinance your home without you even knowing about it. It's a pretty scary scenario. 9% of identity theft is done to gain employment. Now, immigrant-based identity theft victims see that their social security number is shared an average of 30 times. Now, we have approximately 12 million illegal immigrants in the United States right now. And often what they do in order to work is they need a social security number in order to gain employment. And what they're doing is they're getting our social security numbers through a variety of different means, and they share it amongst their friends and family. And so there could be people out there that are actually working with our social security numbers, and in the end, we may actually have to pay taxes on the labor that they had done over the past year. It's pretty scary. In addition to that, sometimes you have convicted felons that get out of jail, and they're having a hard time getting a job because every time they go to get a job, somebody does a background check on them, finds out they're a convicted felon. Not many people want to hire a convicted felon. And so they find that the easiest way to get a job is to steal somebody else's identity. And sometimes that job might be at a pharmacy, let's say. They work at a pharmacy for a couple of months, and over a period of time, they realize they can get a job as a manager at that pharmacy. So now this convicted felon is a manager at the pharmacy. Over time, he realizes that he gets access to the alarm system, to the safe, to all the pharmaceuticals. Next thing you know, he's stealing all the drugs and all the cash, and then he skips town. Now, who's law enforcement looking for? They're looking for the identity theft victim, the person whose social security number that the convicted felon stole. It's pretty scary. 7% is to get loans for cash, vehicles, boats, and homes. And of course, with those vehicles and those boats, they sell them on the black market. And with the homes, again, it's in the form of mortgage fraud. 6% is for driver's licenses, social security cards, fraudulent tax returns, government benefits, insurance fraud, even opening up fictitious businesses under our names. Once they open up fictitious business under our names, then they get merchant status. Merchant status is the ability to receive credit cards. And then from that point on, they can make an awful lot of money. They register for schools under our names, using your name to hide in plain sight. Also crimes under your name, and even funding terrorism. When military had gone into and infiltrated Al-Qaeda, they found manual after manual that taught them how to commit identity theft and all types of hacking crimes. So it's really the easiest crime to commit, the hardest crime to get caught for, and anyone can make a ton of money doing it, and that's exactly what's going on right now. So here we'll talk about our system of identification. And I think it's important that we discuss identification because really, it's the way in which you and I are identified that is the biggest part of the problem. You will begin to see that to this very day, you and I have not been properly identified. And what that means is that, you know, from birth, we're given a name, a moniker that your mom and dad gives you. And then that name follows you throughout life. And along with that, the government tags you with a social security number that was originally meant for social security benefits. However, it's become much, much more than that. But that social security number is primarily your national ID. And again, it never was meant to have that much responsibility. So along that path, you also get a birth certificate, which is just a paper document. You also get a social security card, you get the driver's license, you get passports, you get identifying documents. And you're going to see that all of these documents, these paper documents, these numerical codes, these account numbers, they really do not identify who we are. And in the end, anybody who gets that information can simply apply it to who they are and become you. And I'm going to show you just how they do that and how unfortunate that really is. And it's kind of scary at this point, but don't be unnerved because there really is a solution at the end of the tunnel. First of all, our system of identification, you and I are identified first based on our name, of course. And you know that there are many other people, or for most of us, there are many other people out there that share our name. Also, our social security number is second, so name first, social second, address third, and date of birth fourth. So with these 4 pieces of information, this is how we are identified by government agencies, by credit bureaus, and so on. Now, because of we use our names as our primary identifier, there are opportunities for mistaken identity. So people that share your name can also use IDs that have their name, which is also your name, but use your social security number, and that's in the form of fraud. So there's mistaken identity, there's fraud. Well, a couple of years ago, I did a background check on myself. I often work with major corporations, and sometimes they want to do a background check on who they're working with to make sure they're on the up and up. And when I did this background check on myself, I found out just how skewered our system of identification is. And a background check basically are corporations and government agencies that funnel all this data, and they incorporate it into, again, what is called a background check. And it's a history of where you've been, what you've done, where you've lived, what jobs you've had, something about your credit, something about your driver record, any criminal histories and all that stuff. Okay? And everybody has a background check. There's companies out there that store all of your information and they sell it. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. And when I did my background check, it showed that on my background check that there were 4 other Robert Sicilianos that were tied into my background, which was a little unnerving to me. And I understood as I read through it what was going on, that there was confusion. But the confusion lied in the fact that there were other Robert Sicilianos within this region. There's a Robert Siciliano in Western Massachusetts who's a lawyer, showed up on my background check. Another one in New Jersey going through a bankruptcy showed up on my background check. Also, it showed my father on my background check. Now, what was funny was that it showed that I lived at my dad's house and that I was married to my stepmom, which wasn't good. So I had to, go through that process, and I had to make some changes. I had to make some phone calls and clean that all up. I mean, there was a clear case of mistaken identity. And, my life at that point, via that background check, looked like an episode of the Jerry Springer Show. So I obviously had some work to do. But, in that one instance, it shows you just how, jumbled up our system of identification is. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it. We've just kind of gone on for the past couple of 100 years, pulling this whole thing together. And now with all this technology coming our way, information becoming so readily available about everyone in so many different ways, identity thieves have figured out how to get that data and apply it to one another or to themselves and simply become you. I mean, it's really an antiquated form of identification.